My name's Joshua Dang, and I work in mainly film and advertising. So I've worked in all different roles, from production assistant, runner, editor, edit assistant, cinematographer, camera assistant, art department, and now I've been transitioning to directing recently. So yeah, it's not impossible to transition from a technical role to a more creative role if you want. And so today I'm going to be talking about collaboration in filmmaking, and just I'll give you sort of a run through of the filmmaking process from a director's perspective. And I'm by no means an expert in directing philosophy or like film theory, but I'm just going to give you a very practical talk about like what I've learned as a director and what I've learned watching other directors on set. So that's my website there with a few of my works. And so a bit about me and how I got to where I am now. I started off, in high school I actually wanted to study medicine. I wanted to be a doctor. And then I didn't get into that, like, no, you doctor yet? No. But then I thought, I also enjoyed law a lot as well. So I enrolled in the media and law degree at Macquarie, and that was 5 years. I did that, and it wasn't until around maybe second or third year that I knew that I wanted to direct like film and commercials. So then after that, I went into the industry, and then I went back to uni to do a master's of media arts production UTS. And then from there, and I'm sort of just, working in film, it's all, it's really all who you know. So it's networking, and like you meet one person and they introduce you to another person and so on. So on the left there of the slides, that's just me directing a music video. And on the right is me in Flume. That was at Future Classic a few years ago. And yeah, now Flume's I think he recently won something like 8 RAs or something, so it's definitely on the rise. But yeah, that's one of the perks with working in this industry, is just get lots of, I worked in that I was working, but I worked at that concert twice, and I got free tickets to that concert, which was great. And I was just working behind the scenes, and also, I watched the concert, and my room was set up like in one of those demountables right behind the stage, so you could just feel like the vibrations of the music. It's just really hectic. And that Flume's just dressed like that because he wanted to disguise himself, and he's walking around in the crowd to see if anyone would recognise him. It's pretty funny. That's me at Katy Perry concert. I worked on that a few years ago as well. And I think I'm sure she's generally really nice, but she was in a really bad mood that day. So, because we were filming a concert DVD for 2 days, just filming the concerts and then turning into like a movie. In between the concerts in the middle of the day, we wanted to film some extra close-ups of her. So we set up like the whole day. It was like literally 10, 20 cameras positioned everywhere to get specific angles. And we waited for her for about the whole day, and she came out about 2 or 3 hours late. She sang one song and then she had like a tantrum. So that's something you do have to deal with. Sometimes people, like I said, I'm sure she's really nice, but she just had like a day where she wasn't feeling very, she's probably tired or something. And then that's me at Taylor Swift's concert, her arch nemesis, the year after, doing exactly the same thing. Okay, so what do you need to be a director? This is just a list that I have of what I think are good skills to have. I'm sure like every director is different, but I'm sure like out of these skills, most of them would share these type of skills. And the first one I've got, this is just like in alphabetical order. The first one I've got is ambition. So you really just it's some of these are really obvious, but I'll talk through them anyway. Ambition, you need that drive, that passion to keep going further. I think Bruce Lee said something like, be happy but never satisfied, which basically just means like you can be happy with where you are, but it's always good to try and strive for something more if you can. And then communication. That's probably the most important one out of all these, I think, especially as a director or as anyone on the crew. But especially as a director, you want to communicate your ideas and your vision or whatever to the cast and crew. And the better you can communicate that, I think the better the final product will be. And all the best directors I've worked with are always the ones that value their cast and crew, the ones that sort of appreciate every role, no matter how big or small they are, what like sort of rung they are on the ladder or hierarchy or whatever. In America, there are some directors I think that are a bit mean to their crew, but generally in Australia, because the industry is so small, you can't afford to be difficult to work with. And of course, if you're creating a good atmosphere on set, that's when I think the best work comes out, when everyone's comfortable and knows what to do. Creativity, and I don't mean creativity in the sense that not just, I'm good at writing or drawing or whatever, but more just creativity to think on your feet. And that brings me to decision making as well. Decision making, you'll be on set, you'll just be in lots of situations where you need to make a decision fast. And it's okay not to know exactly sometimes and to feel a bit nervous, but if you can sort of just see what people think and then make a choice and lead people, that helps a lot. Leadership, same sort of thing. Marketing. Okay, so in the film industry, especially as a director, you're like a commodity, which sounds bad, but you kind of are. You need to sell yourself. And especially because I've been transitioning to directing now, and I want to get regular work as a commercial director. And those guys, normally they're guys or girls, they're always, it's hard to say, but they're pigeonholed. So you can either be like a comedy director or a cars guy, or you can direct visual or beauty, etc. And I'm sure lots of directors are versatile anyway, but it's just the way the industry works. It's sort of put in a way where clients and advertising agencies sort of can't understand that you can do more than one thing. But yeah, so the whole point is you need to market yourself. You need to constantly be just selling yourself and making sure people know who you are. And resilience. Okay, this one's important as well. I don't know, I can't remember the amount of times I've been rejected, and I've sort of I just shrug it off now. But it's something that you have to accept if you want to work in this industry. Especially with acting as well, so anything in the creative industries. For example, I think it was, what's his name? Oh, there's a guy in Modern Family, I think it was Eric Stone Street. He said his job as an actor is to audition, and anything that he, any role that he books or gets is like a bonus. And if you sort of set yourself up in that way where failure is just like another part of the job, then I think that's a lot better. It's not like the be all and end all if you like feel really down on yourself after one job or something you didn't get. Okay, and then technical skills. Technical skills, for example, you need to know about design, acting, cinematography. Like for example, you need to know like a bit about lighting, a bit about what lens you want. Is this a 50mm? Is this whatever, for example. And the more you know, well, I don't want to say it like this, but a director's sort of a jack of all trades, and you're not really. You can, well, basically, the more you know about something, the better you can communicate with your crew. But if you're working with a big crew, they should you're hiring specialists really, and they're the ones. If you can communicate the idea and your vision to them, that they'll be able to best deliver it. And I think the more experience you get, the more you learn about each area, and the better you can communicate with future crew. So that's important. Okay, so stages, director's perspective. Okay, so like I said, I'm transition directing, but I'll talk you through just like the process of how you make a project, how you make it. Doesn't matter if it's a film or a commercial, music video. They all sort of follow the same sort of steps. In lower budget things, they might be a bit more compressed and things might overlap, but they'll generally follow the same structure. Okay, so development stages are, it's basically in a short film or film, it's when the script comes to life. When they're writing the script, or when in the commercial, same thing, when they're writing the boards or the scripts. Music videos, when the song is being written and the idea of the music video gets down onto a page. And then I'll talk more about the ones in bold are the ones that I'll talk more detail about. And then pre-production is like basically organizing everything. Just putting everything together to make sure that you're as prepared as possible for the day, the shoot days, or however long it goes for. Production, that just means the shoot. Some of this you may already know, but I'll just talk through it from what I think. And then post-production is when you're editing it together and putting, I find that quite enjoyable, the editing process, because you sort of see everything you filmed come to life and join together. So the first stage I've got in the development process is first contact. So that can be in a commercial, it could be more like a more formal conference call where you're talking with the creatives about the idea. In a music video where the artist is not signed, it could be something a bit less formal. So it could just be a chat with them about what their song is about, the message behind it and stuff like that. The most important thing in these first like chat conference type things when you're making, so basically for context in say a big commercial, the client will go to an ad agency to come up with an idea for them for a commercial, and then the ad agency will come with the idea, and then they'll go to a production company for a director to direct the idea, and then that's when the crew, like the big crew, come in, and then everything comes to life. So what I always find, especially if it's a music video, for example, is you ask questions and you sort of let the artist or the label or whatever, the brand, sort of talk about what the idea means to them first. And then you just listen. And usually, you try to be prepared. You try to find the main theme and tell them what appeals to you about the project. And then you just listen to what they've said, and you basically just offer ideas to add to the concept. And when you can connect your ideas with theirs, that's when they feel that you've got a connection, and they may pick you for the job. And it's good to draw references on the fly. So basically, the more you know about not just film, but pop culture, current events, literature, travel, anything. So basically, the more general knowledge you have, the more references you can draw, and the better ideas you can get, pretty much. And I've got down on the slides, if you can see them, it says make them feel safe. So with an artist, a singer, this is like the world to them. This is like their baby. Same thing as in commercials. The creatives have been writing this idea and coming up with it for months. So this means the world to them, and you have to understand that, and you need to show them that you also understand that. Because you might just come in as a freelance director or with a production company only for a couple of weeks, you're pretty much just finishing off the project, but they've been working on it forever. So that you need to make them feel that you'll be able to make their idea come to life. And yeah, so I've got at the bottom here, storytelling is about creating emotional connections. And that's just really important. You can have really beautiful images, but if at the end of the day they don't tell a story or they don't make the audience sort of feel something, whether it's happy, sad, if they don't have some sort of emotional connection with the project, then I think it's not as successful as it could have been. Okay, so basically what I've got here is treatment, and a treatment is it's just a document. It's normally really visual, and it just goes through like how you're going to execute the project. So this is sort of like a pitch. So as a director or working in film industry, you really need to be able to pitch ideas. So it's really just about making a connection again, as I said. There are lots of really good ideas out there that aren't pitched very well, so they don't go anywhere, and other ideas that are just kind of average, but because the person or people behind it just sort of sold it so well, they go through. That's just the reality of life. Okay. So introduction, concept, story, casting, camera look, style, color design, music and sound, location, conclusion. Yeah, so this is a random page from one of the treatments I've done. So you just talk through the concept, you sort of talk about how you're going to deliver it, like what colors you want in it, what lenses you want to use maybe, what type of casting. Casting is very important, how you're going to cast it, what locations you're going to use. So this is just a music video that I did beginning of this year, and we went up to like the Gloucester region, which is like around Barrington, Tops, Roddenvale, or different areas about 4 hours north of Sydney. It's sort of a country, more rural area, and yeah, we shot a music video for two days. That was fun. This was more of a passion project, so I didn't make much money out of this. This was just more just to add to my show reel. And yeah, when we were driving up, it was pouring rain. I was driving the freeway and my friends thought I was dead. Like, because I just didn't reply to their calls, there was no reception. And yeah, I couldn't see it all. So that's another thing you have to deal with. Hardships is always filmmaking sort of happens, rain, hail or shine most of the time, maybe not hail. But if it's in rain, they always have wet weather gear and you shoot through rain if you can. Unless it's like a huge budget, then they can schedule a lot more days. Okay, so pre-production shot list. This is just basically a shot list of, for a TV show I did called Cybershack. I was freelance director on the Channel 9 show. And it's just a really basic shot list of like what type of shots. I don't know how much you guys know about like film in general, but I'll just go through this. So there's like mid shots, wide shot, close-ups, and then basically I give this shot list to producer or first AD or something, and they will organize it into what order to shoot it on the day. It's the fastest and most efficient way. Yeah, so I've got like close-ups here again. Yeah. So you may be thinking, what roles are there? Like, what other career options are there besides director? Because to be honest, not many people are like, yeah, there's just a lot of other roles that you can also do. Not everyone wants to be a director. So I've got here just a list of like who would be, this is a basic list of who would be on a commercial or like a film, but just like condensed, not like every single role. But I've got producer, production manager, all these guys are all women. They are, I don't know why, but most of the producers I know are women. I think maybe because they're really good at organizing. I don't know whether that's sexist or not, but just the majority of women, or the majority of producers or people who work in production I know are women, and they're really, really good at it. So that really is just organizing. You'll be organizing locations, helping with casting, what else? there's just a whole bunch of things, getting permissions for things. You're basically you're holding, as a producer, you're holding the project together, and you follow it from the start to the very end until all the project's delivered. Whereas another crew role, you might just come for the shoot and then you're done. But as a producer or anything with production, you're there the whole time. So the project is your baby as well. Assistant directors. So a first assistant director, for example, would, on the day of the shoot, they'd be the ones that sort of keep everything together as well, in the sense that most of the times the first AD will be calling action, and they're just in charge to make sure that the day runs smoothly and you go to schedule and stuff like that. Director of photography, that's like the cinematographer, the person behind the camera, the head of the camera department, head of they'll be yeah. They're also kind of head of the lighting and grip departments as well. There's lots of roles here. If you have the slides, you can look through. I'm not going to go through all of them. There's a client. So, for example, on a commercial client advertising agency, there's a thing called Video Village, which is the camera will be connected to a monitor or several monitors, and there'll be away in like a Katy, which is like a tent, or they might be like in just in a room somewhere, and they'll just be watching and giving their feedback, like sipping on their coffees, and just the director will go to them after a few takes normally, and then they'll say, "Oh, what do you want here?" Because at the end of the day, it's their idea and their vision that you need to serve. Okay, so production, direct talent. So what can you do as a director to get the best performance you can from an actor or actor? Create a comfortable environment. So this is what I mentioned before, is like the more comfortable you make everyone feel, the better result you get. Speak the language of actors. This is basically the more you know about acting theory, like just methods, Stanislavski, all that kind of stuff, the more you can communicate with them. It's the same thing with technical knowledge. If you have no idea what's going on, I know lots of directors who know a lot about the performance side, but they have no idea about technical camera stuff, or like vice versa. You sort of need to know a bit about everything to communicate. Give playable direction. So this is also to do with sort of giving the actor sort of a situation where they can relate to give the performance. So if you want them to feel sad, you don't just say, "I want you to look sad." Sort of try and give them remember a time when you blah blah. Just so they can draw on certain emotions rather than just like trying to play one certain word. It's very difficult. Or the good actors can, but the more you can sort of or it leads on to the next thing. Ask questions, offer suggestions, understand subtext and context. So subtext, I'm sure you guys already know. Subtext is like when people say words or when actors say lines, there's always like a hidden meaning under those lines, behind those lines. You might not say exactly how you really feel. And that happens all the time in everyday life. So I encourage you to listen to people's conversations. Sometimes if you're in the bus or something, just see what they say. And lots of times I've noticed people are just like, sometimes they're just mindlessly talking. Other times there's actually something deep behind it and the other person doesn't get it. And the more that's to do with script writing and writing as well. If you know more about how generally other people talk, then you can sort of spice it up and make it a better script. Because really, film and all this creative stuff, it's really just reality reflected, but like a more exciting version of reality. And I've got here, only use line reading as a last resort. So line reading is basically when you sort of tell the actor exactly how to say it. And this is like normally a no-no, but sometimes you have to. So it's basically like if they say, for example, I was in a Woolies commercial, I wasn't directing this one, but I was camera assisting on this one. And maybe you've seen these ads, but basically there was a line that the actor needed to say, and it was, what was it? It was, and that's why I pick Woolies. It was meant to be really casual, sort of matter of fact, but the actor just got nervous that he could never say it, so he kept saying, that's why I picked Woolies, and he kept putting the emphasis on the wrong word. And this was a night shoot as well, so we were shooting, because that was the only time we could get the Woolies store like free. We were shooting from all night, and everyone was getting really sleepy, and the actor was getting sleepy, but he just couldn't get it right. So then I think at the end, the director just rolled the camera. So sometimes you can secretly roll the camera and just say it's a rehearsal. I know you're sort of deceiving the actor in that way, but it always turns out once they don't think they're being filmed, especially with more inexperienced actors, they'll just let go and they'll give the best performance ever. And then as soon as you turn the camera back and you say you're rolling, they'll look stiff up and get nervous again. And subtlety is the key, especially with close-ups. So the closer the camera is, like the more. That's why sometimes the theatre actors who haven't had much experience in film acting on screen, their performance is a bit too big. Like you sometimes need to be subtle. Steer the ship. I've talked about this already. Just make sure everyone is feeling happy and sticking to schedule. So, like I said before, I will write a shot list and then some. This is an example from a music video that I did. That's a screenshot from the music video. I'll write a shot list and then someone in production will translate it to a schedule to shoot it in the most efficient way. What have I got? So when you're on set, just go with the flow. Just try and keep an open mind. Try and think as fast as you can. Be quick, but don't hurry. That's a saying I always do. Okay, editing is when you put it all together. And I've got color grade here. The top image is before the color has been added. Like you sort of shoot it really flat, and then once you put it into a color grading program, they'll bring the color to life. So I think my final words for this talk would be just keep making your own things. So go out there, be proactive as you can, and make your own stuff. And you may not feel like you're a director, but you're more of a director than someone who's just sitting down and doing nothing. So the more you make, the more you learn, and the better you become. And that just works for like lots of creative fields. Like if you're a writer, keep writing, stuff like that. Okay, that ends my talk, and I'm ready for questions. Okay, why directing? I think it's just, like I said, filmmaking is a collaborative process, but I found that not control-wise, but you always get, it's a creative thing really. Film is a way to express not your feelings, but what you think, your view of the world, and if you can keep making that and sort of share. The best thing is, I don't really like the films that you just make and then no one watches it. The reason why I make films is so that there's an audience and you sort of have an effect on someone who's watching it, and that just makes me happy. That's why. Yeah, so that's a really good question. How do you manage bad moods when people are angry? So being a director, you're sort of like a people manager in a sense that you need to make sure so many different personalities on set, and it's really just staying calm and trying to relate to how they feel. Sometimes you just can't take things too personally, and people are generally nice. It's really when you really just need to see where they're coming from. Take a breath, tell them to just give them some time to recollect themselves, and it should be fine in the end. As long as people know what they're doing and how important this thing is to them, because it's not just you, it's everyone working together. I think filmmaking, like I said, is collaborative. It's like a really big team sport. So instead of being maybe only 10, 11 people on a team, could be up to 50 or 100 people on a big commercial, or like, yeah, and it's just coordinating all those people and just staying calm, okay? Staying calm. I personally, when I'm editing some of my smaller stuff, I use Adobe Premiere. But so I think in commercials, that's mainly the software they use, Adobe Premiere Pro. But in television and in film, lots of people use Avid. So Avid Media Composer. Yeah, those, if you do want to learn something, those are probably the two things you should learn. Final Cut Pro used to be better, but I think it's become a bit too consumer. Like, so if you want to work professionally in the industry, it's probably best to learn Adobe Premiere Pro and Avid Media Composer. So like I said, film just reflects social issues a lot of the time. If you watch Academy Award-winning films, the ones that win, you shouldn't just make films to win awards, but the ones that do well, especially with audiences as well, the ones that sort of reflect what's going on in society today. So if you can think about what ideas or what issues are prevalent in what's happening today, and you sort of have your own spin on that, or what you feel about that, that's the best way you can achieve like a very like impactful idea. Social media now has made it, and just like, this is the whole, like, yeah, there are lectures and lectures on this topic. But basically, in social media, now that everything's so accessible, it's just it's making it easier for a lot of people to share their world, share what they want, their ideas, and I encourage you to take advantage of that. So for example, a long time ago, if you wanted to make a good quality film, you actually need to shoot on film, and that just costs lots of money and lots of time and effort. And same thing now, but now it's really accessible. Like, you just pick up a mobile phone or a DSLR or just like any sort of camera and share it. And yeah, that is having an effect on the industry, but yeah, that's just a way to make more things, I think. I think as a director, yeah, like I said, you want to share your view in the world of the world to the world. So it's really up to you whether or not you care. Like, some directors want a lot of validation, and they'll make something that has a mass appeal, whereas other directors will just try and make something that speaks true to themselves, and whether or not people watch it is up to them. Not really. Like, when I first started out, I saw It's Famous, and I did sort of get a bit, not anymore. Now I've realized actors and singers and stuff, they're just like us. So they're just there to do their job in the best possible way they can, and then you just get used to it, really. But yeah, I do get what you mean. Yeah, I haven't seen anyone faint or anything from excitement, but I have seen that happen, like, yeah, in like big events, but yeah, not in on set or anything like that. That's like how long is a piece of string type of question. It really just depends on how much budget you have. So the last short film I did cost around, it was a 10-minute film, cost around $10,000. But I know people have made short films that are $50,000, or they've made short films that are $100. So even in films where you're spending several $1,000s, you're still borrowing and stealing. So you're sort of getting everyone to do you favors, and hopefully that will pay off. But yeah, it's totally possible to make a short film that's doesn't cost you anything. Just as long as, I think if people are working for you for free or volunteering, the most important thing is to make sure they're fed, like well fed. Because if people are volunteering their time, donating their time and expertise, if you don't feed them or pay them, that's like that's a no-no in the industry. But yeah, so you can just pick up a camera. It doesn't matter what camera you have. The more high-end stuff, it costs a lot of money to hire a camera. But if you've got a DSLR, or you've got even just if you're really just starting out, even just your iPhone or something, it's just encourage. That brings us to the next point. I encourage you to learn how to edit, because it really helps you on the shoot as well. So you sometimes you'll have to storyboard it out completely. Other times you won't have to do as much. But I always find the more organized you are, the better. So if you understand editing, you know exactly how it's going to come together, and you'll know what to shoot, not to waste time. Like I said, I've been directing for a long time, but it's only recently that I've been directing to make money. So it's hard to say, but as long as you, I think the hardest thing, the bigger the crews are, the more it is that brings up like the question before about how do you coordinate different personalities. I think it's just with experience. The more you direct, the better. So I think the hardest thing would be to sort of make sure everyone's happy. So once everyone knows what they're doing, that's when, like the vision will come to life. Thanks, guys.